know they were close friends or anything like that. That was great to hear. That Ed called the guy and reached out to him when he heard he wasn't in Dave's band anymore. I mean, really, who does that, right?
Right.
I mean, the guy who effectively replaces you, right? And you're calling him like, wow. That's amazing.
Unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Really, for Van Halen fans, that's a dream. That's incredible. That conversation between Steve Vai and Eddie Van Halen. Can you imagine how Steve must have felt the day after, like, to get a call from Eddie Van Halen? It's incredible. It's so cool, though.
It would have been fun if Ed's like, well, now you know what it feels like, so why don't we come over and compare notes?
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine the trash talk?
I would have loved to have heard those two guys jam together.
Oh, please. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up Van Halen news.
And that's the way it is. Good night.
And we have an ongoing mess of stuff to talk about. We have so much going on. So, coming up, what did we learn from Wolf? Dave and I's full discussion about Wolfgang Van Halen's week-long whirlwind press tour, where he was on the Howard Stern Show, the Today Show, he was in Forbes magazine, Spin magazine, Rolling Stone magazine, along with various radio stations, and Entertainment Tonight, followed by our interview with Sass Jordan. Oh my God, she is a live wire, this woman. She talks about her time in 1996, 4 months that she spent in the studio with Ed and Al Van Halen, if you can believe that. But before we get to all that, Dave, we have mailbag to get through. And let me tell you something, Dave's extra cranky on this one. He gets all revved up right from the start, and he starts getting all kinds of tied into knots. So it's always fun to watch him squirm.
Well, I'm just trying to plow through the mail efficiently.
That's right. He cracks the whip along the way, and my ass is chafed.
Someone's got to keep you on target.
Obviously, my wife says the same thing. Okay.
That is the second time during this podcast you have compared me to her.
I know. It's a shocking comparison. It's and that's all coming up next. Take a listen.
We really don't train for this kind of a thing. I like sports, I like some kinds of athletics and things, but I'm no good at any of them. I don't have the discipline for it, you know. I was raised on a heavy diet of television and radio, and I need a commercial every 10 minutes in my life, so I've never really kept after any one thing. Most of the moves and the things that I do on stage are taken right off of television or from comic books or something where you just look at it and you go, hey, I can do that.
If you need a dose of VH, get a taste of the closest thing. Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band, playing all the hits from the David Lee Roth era, first classic 6 albums plus deep cuts, some of which have never been played live before by the band. They even throw in popular tracks from the Sammy Hagar era and solo hits. The most viewed Van Halen tribute band on YouTube, Romeo Delight, doing customized recreations of staging, instruments, and costumes from the classic Van Halen era. They even perform entire Van Halen albums in sequence. Romeo Delight plays theaters, casinos, summer indoor and outdoor festivals, and special events. They're also available for private parties. To contact them, call Bud Blanche at 215-704-5144. That's 215-704-5144. Or via email at sonicparade1@yahoo.com. Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band.
Hi, this is Derek Sherinian. You're listening to Dave and Dave Unchained.
Pick up the new coffee table-sized book, The Decade That Rocked, by legendary rock photographer Mark Weissguy Weiss. This 376-page book has hundreds and hundreds of full-color photos that Weiss shot through the 80s for magazines like Circus, Faces, and Hit Parader, featuring bands like Van Halen, Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Bon Jovi, Skid Row, Guns N' Roses, Ozzy Osbourne, and more. There's even behind-the-scenes stories to go with these colorful, eye-popping pictures. The Decade That Rocked, a new book by rock photographer Mark Weiss, is available for purchase now. Go to thedecadethatrocked.com where there are exclusive bundles available with extra prints, t-shirts, and even patches. Inquire about the Van Halen bundle especially made for Dave and Dave Unchained listeners. Order today. The decade that rocked. It'll rock your world.
I always knew what I wanted to do. When I was 9 years old, I got my first radio from Uncle Dave. And I put it on, and it was Ray Charles singing Crying Time Again, and I just knew I had to be on the radio. I listen to the radio constantly, but there's no one specific band or artist who I want to be like him. You can innovate. You know, it's better to steal. And people say, well, you can't steal. That's no good. That's no way to make art. Nonsense, man. Inspiration doesn't come from nowhere. You don't lay in a dark black room and suddenly a burst of light and the hand of the Lord comes out and says, here, have a song. It doesn't happen like that. You have to steal it from somebody, and you change this, and you change that, you change that. If it was good enough for Beethoven, it's good enough for me.
All right, Dave, you know what time it is.
Well, my buddy Dave, he don't want me around. He says he's tired of watching me let him down. He just wants a good mailbag. He wants only the best. But he hates disappointment better than all the rest. And he says that he thinks that I'm headed for a whole lot of trouble. Well, he thinks that I'm headed for a whole lot of trouble. Well, he thinks that I'm headed for a whole lot of trouble if I don't nail the mailbag intro.
That's right, it's mailbag time again. And oh, Dave, we got a nice sack of mail here, and let me tell you something. The first one's going to knock your socks off, just to start with, okay?
All right, Santa will be jealous at all the mail we're getting.
That's right. You can't believe the amount of mail we're getting these days, and obviously, you know, many has to do with Ed's passing and our listeners' reflections upon that, but we got some interesting things, so let's get right to it with Ryan Clark with letter number 1. He said he wants to thank us for honoring Eddie's passing. With the mid-month short episode last month, and he says he has a question for us that's hypothetical. So he says, I apologize to Quiet Dave, because this might go into what-if territory.
Oh, man, the first letter?
Well, you know what? You gotta pinch your nose and take your medicine, because we are going to be heading into what-if. He says, if there was to be an Eddie Van Halen tribute concert, similar to the one after Freddie Mercury's death, featuring prominent contemporaries of Eddie to pay tribute to his music, who are the people you'd want to see involved in that performance? And what kind of set list would you like to see? Keep in mind, the point of the show would be to appreciate Eddie's musical contributions, not necessarily for strict entertainment value. And he says, your friend and now college graduate listener, Ryan Clark. Well, I want to thank you, Ryan. Congrats on your graduation. I feel
yes, congratulations.
Yes.
Big achievement.
I feel we had a heavy hand in helping raise you to become a fine, upstanding young man that you are. So we are now going to go forth and we're going to go right into what-if territory. Now it's time for What If with Dave and Dave. Shit, what if? What if? Dave Marconi's favorite segment, What If? What if, motherfucker?
I don't do what-ifs.
And there's nothing like pissing off old Quiet Dave with a first crack of the bat being a what-if. Of course.
All right, let's do it.
All right, well, we'll see if Dave did his homework, because I want you to know, Mr. Ryan, that I work very hard on this. You put me to work over here. So, in the dream world, okay, in the what-if scenario, we would have a tribute concert to Eddie when concerts resume back in, 2025. We're going to have Al on drums, Michael Anthony on bass, David Lee Roth on vocals, and Sammy Hagar on vocals. And we'd have a host of guitarists on a variety of tracks. Now, here's my set list with said guests, okay? We're going to start off, of course, with Unchained, with guest guitarist Dweezil Zappa. Then we're going to move into Running with the Devil, guest guitarist Zakk Wylde. Right into Pound Cake with Vic Johnson on guitar. Now, keep in mind, obviously, the singers are going to be the singers for the song. So, 2 for Dave, 2 for Sam.
You're going to get so much hate mail for that one. You're going to get so much hate mail. I can feel people writing now saying, how could you have the Butcher do Pound Cake?
The Butcher do Pound Cake?
That's what they call him. People who are not fans of his Van Halen cover work refer to him as the Butcher.
Really?
Yes. There are quite a few people out there who are not a fan of Vic's interpretation of Van Halen songs. And Pound Cake is one of those songs where they're like, you should not be doing that song. So, now I don't happen to share that. I know he's not an Ed clone and he does his own thing, and I think he's a perfect match for Sam. But it's an interesting choice you make.
All right, well, now you're making me feel all insecure. I got to change my thing here now.
Well, it's the first letter and you threw down a what if, so, I'm coming out fighting now.
Well, then what happens? I remove Vic, and then people are going to start calling me a racist?
No, it's Dave. It's your ideal concert.
All right,
you do whatever
fine.
You want.
All right. Now, you ruined my flow. I'm all upset. I was all proud of this thing. I worked on it for hours.
No, keep going. Dave, right. You did a lot more work than I did, so keep going, man.
I know. Okay, all right. So, number 3, Pound Cake with Vic Johnson. And number 4, Best of Both Worlds with Steve Lukather. Number 5, I'm the One with Steve Vai. Number 6, Panama with Tom Morello. Number 7, Summer Nights with Nancy Wilson. Number 8, Seventh Seal with Nuno Bettencourt. Number 9, AFU with Yngwie Malmsteen. Then we have a guitar solo section with 316, Spanish Fly Cathedral, and Eruption, and the Beat It solo thrown in there, done by Wolfgang Van Halen. Number 11, Light Up the Sky with Joe Satriani. Number 12, Romeo Delight with Kirk Hammett. Number 13, Hot for Teacher with Billy Gibbons. Number 14, Right Now with Brian May. And number 15, Ain't Talking About Love with Slash on guitar, and Dave and Sam have to put on their big boy pants and co-lead on that song.
I like your Billy Gibbons choice with Hot for Teacher.
You like that, right?
Excellent call.
All right,
yes.
Good.
Yes, I'm a little worried about Slash, though, because ever since the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
I figured he knows the song.
Well,
no. I think Slash would really do a good job. Listen, that night had nothing to do with Slash. That was all a mishmash because of Velvet Revolver was not in a great place for themselves, with Scott not being well, Ed not being there. It was kind of a hodgepodge.
No, I know, but it's interesting. When I think of guitarists that are influenced by Van Halen, Slash is not one that immediately comes to mind.
Really? Who do you think paid tribute to him for the Rock Hall?
Oh, no, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I give him full kudos to it. I'm just talking musically.
And they were friends.
I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just saying it's not as obvious as, say, Steve Vai or Joe Satriani.
Well, that's obvious, but listen, this is what you get, Ryan, when you start with a what if. Dave's cranky right off the bat. He's all irritated. So, all right, so now do you have a list, young man?
No, I don't. I'm not nearly as prepared as you are. I was actually going to suggest the same thing you were conceptually, which is to have the band do what Queen did, which is play the songs, bring up a different guitarist.
Yeah, that was
each
beautiful.
Song.
Yeah.
Dave and Sam come up, maybe Gary if they're feeling charitable.
Oh, listen to you. You know what? After the butchering I got for putting in Vic Johnson, I purposely left Gary out because I didn't want to hear your whole soliloquy about how dare you bring Gary Sharon next to Roth and
as long as they don't do How Many Say I. And I'm a big fan of Without You. So when I read that letter and they said, I'm thinking, well, I don't know any contemporary musicians. All my musicians have been around that I like have been around for 20 or 30 years.
Dave, he means Ed's contemporaries.
Oh, okay. Well, that's something different. But and it's also interesting that it says not for entertainment value, because if it was for entertainment value, then you would have a whole bunch of people on that stage. I certainly would not know because they have to bring in current people so the youngins will watch.
Well, what I was going to suggest is at the end, everybody puts their arms around each other and sings How Many Say I. You could have almost like a Frankenstein, guitar kind of rise up, on a string right above everybody. It would be kind of cool, but